Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 285, Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane, and this card is just stacked from top to bottom with incredible fights. And on the pay-per-view main card, we have an amazing lightweight matchup, Mateusz Gamrot versus Jalin Turner, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this fight. And I've already done a bunch of UFC 285 prediction videos. I will link my entire UFC 285 playlist down in the description if you want to go check out any of those videos after this. But this is a massive lightweight fight on the UFC 285 card. And this was a fight we weren't supposed to get. It was originally supposed to be Jalin Turner versus Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker pulled out about 3 weeks before the fight, and Mateusz Gamrot steps in, and what a matchup this is. I think this is a far superior matchup than the original Dan Hooker versus Jalin Turner matchup, because honestly, let's be real at this point. You know, there is a massive difference in skill between Mateusz Gamrot and a guy like Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker a couple years ago was a very good fighter, but at this point, he's a step away from a dead corpse. He's a step away from what Tony Ferguson is now. Dan Hooker's UFC career, he has one foot in the grave, the other on a banana peel. So I am much happier to see Mateusz Gamrot versus Jalin Turner. What an amazing lightweight fight this is. I'm a little bit disappointed because I wish Mateusz Gamrot had a full camp for Jalin Turner. And even for Jalin Turner, who was already training to fight at UFC 285, the style matchup is drastically different. So I wish Jalin Turner had a full camp to train for a guy with the skill set of Mateusz Gamrot. You know, a lot of people always say, oh, well, this guy stepped in on short notice. But you have to take into account, even the fighter that was already scheduled to fight on the card, you know, now they're taking a drastically different style matchup. So they're kind of fighting on short notice as well in a weird way. But this is an amazing matchup, and I think this is a big fight for both guys. Gamrot's coming off a loss. Jalin Turner is on a nasty win streak, surging in the rankings. And if he can take out a guy like Mateusz Gamrot, he's going to propel himself into the top 10 of the UFC lightweight division, which is just a nasty division. And I'm really looking forward to this matchup because stylistically, you have a striker versus grappler matchup. You know, Mateusz Gamrot being the grappler, Jalin Turner being the striker. But Jalin Turner has some slick submissions himself. So I think this is a very compelling matchup. I think this is a fight both guys obviously want to win. You know, Jalin Turner's getting the biggest step up in competition in his MMA career. And for Gamrot, who was surging just before his loss to Beneil Dariush, which we'll talk about here in a second, he doesn't want to go on a two-fight losing skid. So this is a fight that both guys must win. And it's going to propel them towards the top of the lightweight division. Whoever wins this fight, I know the lightweight division is particularly stacked, but whoever wins this fight will probably be fighting for a title in the next year and a half, 2 years. I know the division is a little bit crazy right now, but depending on how some of these fights play out, I see Gamrot or Turner, whoever wins this fight, being 2 fights, maybe 3 fights away from a potential lightweight title shot. So it's not necessarily a guarantee, but it's going to put them very, very close, and they're going to be in a massive lightweight fight in their next fight if they win this matchup. So if you look at the tail of the tape for this fight, you have Mateusz Gamrot 21-2. You have Jalin Turner 13-5. You have Gamrot, who's ranked number 7. Turner, who's ranked number 10 in the UFC official rankings. Gamrot is 32. Turner is 27. Gamrot is 5'10". Turner is 6'3". Gamrot has a 70.5-inch reach, and Turner has a 75.5-inch reach. So a massive 5-inch height and reach advantage for Jalin Turner. Now, if you look at Jalin Turner, his pro MMA career, 13 wins, 5 losses. Of his 13 wins, 9 by knockout, 4 by submission. Of his 5 losses, 3 by knockout or TKO and 2 by decision. He comes into this fight on a 5-fight win streak. His last fight was against Brad Riddell back at UFC 276 in July of 2022. Clipped him with what I believe it was a big right hand and then ends up guillotining him in the first round. Phenomenal performance by Jalin Turner. But even though Brad Riddell, who I believe was a big step up for Jalin Turner at the time, Brad Riddell's kind of fallen off a cliff. The fight before that, he TKO'd Jamie Mullarkey, you know, was lighting him up in the first round. They got to the second round, just started swarming him with big shots and finishes Jamie Mullarkey in the second round. The fight before that, he defeats Jaros Mektic, submitted him via rear naked choke. This was all the way back at UFC 266 in September of 2021. went out there, melted him with combinations, then jumped on his back and choked him out, rear naked choke. But one thing I want to mention, you look over Jalin Turner's UFC career, and he came off Dana White's Contender Series all the way back in 2018. His 2 losses are, one is to Matt Frevola back at UFC 236, where he got out-grappled. He had some moments in this fight. He was able to get up multiple times in this fight, but he got out-grappled by Matt Frevola. The only other loss in the UFC is the Vicente Luque, and that's all the way back in October of 2018. And Vicente Luque is not a horrible fighter to have in terms of having a loss to. But, you know, we have to look at that Matt Frevola fight, because Matt Frevola, while he's not a garbage can by any means, he's a very good fighter. He's not the elite of the elite at lightweight. But also you have to take into account that's all the way back in 2019. And I believe Jalin Turner is a rapidly improving as far as his MMA skill set. And I can't wait to see how he looks at UFC 285. Moving on to Mateusz Gamrot, he is 21-2. Of those 21 wins, 7 by knockout, 5 by submission, 9 by decision. Of those 2 losses, both have been via decision. He comes into this fight on a 1-fight losing streak, but he arguably should be on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fight was at UFC 280 in October of 2022, and he lost to Beneil Dariush. Now, this was a competitive fight, but Beneil Dariush, Mateusz Gamrot could not keep him down. And the first round, I think Gamrot won with his grappling, had some control time, looking for submissions. But after that first round, Beneil Dariush was just lighting him up on the feet. Gamrot had some moments on the feet, but he just kept looking for the takedown. Beneil Dariush kept scrambling out of it back to his feet, and then Beneil Dariush would go back to, you know, kicking the legs, landed some good shots on the feet, and he wins the second and third round. In the third round, Beneil Dariush landed a nasty counter punch, and I don't know how Gamrot didn't go to sleep. It was one of the biggest power punches I've seen landed, and oh my goodness, Gamrot's head just snapped back. He fell to the ground, but he scrambled right back to his feet. But Beneil Dariush wins the fight. Not a horrible loss to have. Beneil Dariush should be fighting for a title in the near future, and he is elite of the elite in the lightweight division. Before that, he was on a 4-fight win streak, but he arguably, you know, you could make a case he lost to Arman Tsarukyan. I believe he did lose to Arman, and that was all the way back in June of 2022. Very competitive fight. Both guys scrambling quite a bit. Gamrot started to be able to get Arman down in the later rounds and control him a little bit. But I thought Arman Tsarukyan should have won this fight 3-2. I think it was the 4th round. The judges gave Gamrot when Tsarukyan dropped him in that round, and it was a very close round. Should have went to Arman. But ultimately, I don't believe it was a robbery. It was a close fight. It was a competitive fight. And look where Tsarukyan is now. He's one of these guys who were looking to move up and fight one of those top 5 guys like Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje or Michael Chandler. And ultimately, it hasn't happened yet. There's some people hoping for a Dustin Poirier matchup. But Arman Tsarukyan, one of the best lightweights in the world, not bad to have a super competitive fight with him. And ultimately, he got his hand raised. The fight before that, he TKO'd Carlos Diego Ferreira. For some reason, they kind of have it, they have it listed as submission via verbal tap out. He landed a knee to the body. He was out grappling Carlos Diego Ferreira. He landed a knee to the body, supposedly broke a rib. Carlos Diego Ferreira taps. Then the fight before that, absolutely ragdolled Jeremy Stephens to the ground and submitted him via Kimura. And then you go back to his UFC debut where he lost to Guram Kutateladze. This was all the way back in October of 2020. I believe that Gamrot won this fight. Even Guram Kutateladze said in his post-fight interview he did not win the fight. Ultimately, it was a competitive fight. Even if you want to say Gamrot lost this fight, Guram Kutateladze, I know a lot of casual fans may not know him. He is one of the best lightweights. It would not shock me to see him in a title fight sometime in the next 2 years. He's definitely going to be ranked. That's how crazy stacked the lightweight division is. So even if it was a loss, it's not a horrible loss to have. So when I look at this fight, I see a typical grappler versus striker matchup. But Jalin Turner does have very slick submission skills. Of his 13 wins, he has 4 wins by submission. But he typically is hurting guys and then latching on to guillotines, latching on to rear naked chokes. When he has guys on the ground, he's beating them up or he's dropped them. Mateusz Gamrot, he likes to go out there, take guys down, beat them up, control them on the ground. Jalin Turner goes out there and honestly has a similar style to Charles Oliveira on the feet. As crazy as that sounds, he comes out super aggressive. He comes plodding forward, throwing knees, throwing nasty kicks, power punches, just looking to pressure guys. But I don't know how that strategy will work against a guy with the grappling level that Mateusz Gamrot has. So this is a very intriguing fight. And the way I see this fight going is if Mateusz Gamrot can get the takedown, I believe Mateusz Gamrot will win this fight. But if he cannot get the takedown against Jalin Turner, I think it's going to be a tough night for Mateusz Gamrot because I think Jalin Turner has a massive striking advantage. But you also have the dynamic that if Gamrot is able to get the takedown, but even if Jalin Turner maybe is able to scramble back to his feet, is the threat of the takedown going to affect Jalin Turner's striking? Because he likes to throw a lot of body kicks. He likes to throw a lot of step-in knees to the body. And Mateusz Gamrot, even in the Beneil Dariush fight, I believe he caught a couple kicks and took Beneil Dariush down. And Beneil Dariush is not easy to take down at all. One of the best grapplers in the division. Where Jalin Turner, we've seen him out-grapple before in the Matt Frevola fight. Even in the Jamie Mullarkey fight, I think in the last minute and a half, he got taken down and controlled by Jamie Mullarkey. So for my official prediction in this fight, I am going Mateusz Gamrot via decision. I think Jalin Turner is very good, and I think he's improved vastly since we've seen him out-grappled by Matt Frevola. Even in that fight, he scrambled back to his feet on countless occasions. But I think Gamrot is the elite of the elite when it comes to grappling. And I do worry a bit because Gamrot's coming in on short notice. I never like to pick the short notice fighter. Jalin Turner does have nasty knockout power, but I think if Gamrot can avoid shooting in sloppily and ending up getting guillotined by Jalin Turner, I think he's going to control him on the ground. I think he's going to beat him up on the ground. I think he's going to prioritize control time over damage. So maybe if Jalin Turner can try to scramble back to his feet and land some good punches, maybe he can end up stealing some rounds based on damage. But I think because Gamrot's going to be prioritizing that control time, I think Jalin Turner is going to have a tough time trying to get back to his feet. And I just don't see him being able to stuff the takedowns of Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot is relentless with his takedowns. We've seen him go 5 rounds. And I believe Arman Tsarukyan is a much better defensive grappler than Jalin Turner. And even later in that fight, he was able to get Arman down and control him and even had his back at one point in that fight. So I don't think Jalin Turner's on the level of Arman. And I think Mateusz Gamrot is just so good once he gets you to the ground. I really believe, even against a guy like Jalin Turner, who's ever improving, has a crazy long reach, is massive for the lightweight division, has a 5-inch height and reach advantage on Mateusz Gamrot. I just think Gamrot's going to play it safe early, first minute or so. He's going to wait for his opportunity. He's going to shoot in on a takedown. Jalin Turner's going to defend well. They're going to be up against the fence. But Gamrot is just relentless. He's not going to let go. Eventually, he's going to drag Jalin Turner to the ground, and I believe he'll control him there. After he gets one takedown in the first round, I think he'll control him there for the rest of the first round. I think he'll land some damage. I think Jalin Turner will be continuously trying to scramble out, but I think he's going to be controlled for the entire round. Then I think the second round, same thing's going to happen. I think Jalin Turner may even have a couple moments on the feet, for the first 30 seconds or minute that Mateusz Gamrot is waiting to shoot on him. I think Jalin Turner is crazy on the feet, throws wild, explosive shots, nasty kicks, but I just don't think anything he throws is going to put Mateusz Gamrot out. Gamrot has a nasty chin. We saw it in the Beneil Dariush fight. I believe it was in the 3rd round. I don't think those moments on the feet where Jalin Turner has a little bit of success before he gets dragged to the ground by Gamrot, I don't think he's going to be able to put him away, and I think he has to. If Jalin Turner wins this fight, I think he's going to have to knock out Mateusz Gamrot, which I don't think is super likely. If I was picking Jalin Turner in this fight, I would probably pick him by guillotine. I think you would have like a sloppy shot by Gamrot in the 1st or 2nd round, and you would get Jalin Turner subbing him that way. But I think Mateusz Gamrot is so good. He has a long history of being an elite level grappler, an ADCC European champion. And I just don't think he's going to make that critical mistake to get subbed by Jalin Turner on a sloppy takedown attempt. So ultimately, I just think the takedown defense of Jalin Turner isn't going to be enough. I think the explosive striking of Jalin Turner just isn't going to be enough. And I think Gamrot's going to drag him down. And I am going with Mateusz Gamrot via decision, 30-27 decision. But I do think it'll be interesting in that third round because even though Gamrot has shown in the past he has 5-round stamina, he can grapple for a full 5 rounds. Even in the Beneil Dariush fight, he grappled for a hard 3 rounds against Beneil Dariush, who was constantly scrambling. He took this on short notice. How in shape is he? Could he out-grapple Jalin Turner for the first 2 rounds? Maybe gas out a little bit in that third round, Jalin Turner could look for the finish. Because Jalin Turner is nasty on the feet and he is ferocious. If he hurts you, he goes for the finish and he just swarms you with crazy combinations and nasty power shots. So I think it could get interesting in that third round. But ultimately, I think Gamrot's grappling is too much. His wrestling is too much. His takedowns are too much. Even if he's not able to get him down, I think he'll be able to bully him against the cage and ultimately get a decision win. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who are you picking, Gamrot or Turner? Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next video.